resume. Okay, everything is fine, right? So actually, during the break, I was looking for the example, but I don't know where it went. So I coded it myself. Well, of course, just the essential stuff, but we will see now how it works. Okay. So this schema that I designed on the slides, we see it implemented in code. Okay, it's actually very simple. I mean, you just have to have this button group and a simple button. Okay, we use the bootstrap button for the rendering. It's fine. We already have an app, so I included it in the rest of the examples we already have. So let me show you how it works. Okay, so that's what appears in the beginning. So 4 buttons. Okay, actually nobody is selected. No one is selected. Just to show something interesting in general. And then I select one, I select another, and the blue becomes the other one. It works as a radio button. Okay, if I click on the same, nothing happens. Okay, so it stays the same. Actually, there is a hierarchy of components, and the button group has a state, which is the index of the button. So let's say I click on the first, index 0, second, index 1, third, index 2, and so on. Okay? So the state is actually on the container. Okay? If you look at where is the container, actually it's this div. Okay? No, actually, well, it's not rendered in HTML. Okay, I will show you why. But it would be, let's say, in the middle between the div and the buttons. Okay, so that's the code I wrote. That's more or less what we saw on the slides. Okay, so the button group has a state, selected, set selected, use state with a number. We'll come back to -1 in a minute. And then I return an array. Okay. An array of what? An array of my simple buttons. And my simple buttons gets a lot of properties. Name, index, the key, don't forget the key, it's an array. Selected or not, and chose, that is the handler, the function that needs to be called by the click. Okay, so I pass down in the components hierarchy the prop that corresponds to a function that can be called by the simple button on the onClick event. Okay? That's exactly this chose button function. Okay? So which are the attributes I pass to the simple button? Well, the name. So when I need to write a name in the button, I know what to write, but it's a prop. I mean, the simple button just takes props, has no state. It takes the name needed to render itself, and the function that has to be called when the click event happens. Okay, and what the click to be attached to the button, not to the container of the buttons, because otherwise I don't know which button has been pressed. Okay, and since I just want to write a single event handler, I need to pass the index as well. Okay, so props index is the index that is passed here to the button, to the simple button. Okay. How do I create an array? Well, we saw the map. It's the most common and easiest way to to create an array also in JSX. Okay, this example is already on the GitHub. I mean, if I push it correctly. The interesting thing is here. I mean, it's just standard JavaScript and nothing related to React. You remember that map takes a callback, and the first parameter is the element that is being processed in the list, but the second one is the index of the element. And so now I need the index, because I need to pass the index to the element to tell which one has been pressed in the onClick handler here, okay, in the props index. I need it for the key as well. It's useful because I need a unique identifier when I don't have anything else. I mean, I can use the index in the array, provided it's unique. I mean, you don't change things in the array. The name, of course, it's E. Selected or not. I mean, it's just a Boolean expression. If it's selected, it means that selected, which is the state, which is a number, it's equal to the index. Okay? So index 0, selected 0, true, otherwise false. Okay? And more or less that's all. The two things I would like you to notice. Well, I initialize the use state with something which is not a button, right? -1, it's outside the list of the buttons. And indeed, when you render it, no buttons is selected. Why? Because the attribute selected is false for everything. But I mean, the simple buttons don't care. It's my choice. If I put 0 here, and of course I reload the application, well, React reloads automatically, but reload the application, the first one is selected. If I put 3, the last one is selected. Okay, save and reload. Okay, the last one is selected. It's the initial state, okay, of the state. Initial value, sorry, of the state. And then everything works as we expect. The other thing I would like you to see is that I need the React fragment here. I cannot simply return the array as it is. You see, it's an error, okay? I need a root of an element tree. When I don't know what to put, I just put the React fragment. That is this syntax, the stuff we saw last time, okay? Greater than, less than, greater than, okay? Or if I have an object, I mean anything else, I mean a component or a div, I don't know what to put, I can put a div or whatever, it's fine. The React fragment does not render here, okay? Well, now I didn't save, but yeah, let's save it. The React fragment doesn't render here, okay? That's why I was looking for the place, you know, where I wanted to tell you, well, the state is here. Components render, I mean, components are React stuff. So here you find the button group, okay, with the state. But the React fragment doesn't render in HTML. Here you can put, I don't know, maybe a form or something like this. Form, it's fine. I mean, the appearance should be the same. But at this point there is a form, and if you would like to have a look in the HTML, you have the form. The React fragment simply is not mapped to anything in the actual DOM. Okay, in the virtual mode DOM is present, in the actual DOM is nothing. Okay, I just you know, because we didn't see the React fragment actually in practice last time. So that's the example of the slides, right? Good. So it's already committed on the GitHub. It's there. So now we are going to see a few more things and then translate these things into something that is useful for our web application, the question and answers. Okay? So handling arrays in state is a very common operation you will have to do in application because you typically show list of things, list of objects and so on. You have a list of emails, the list of films in the lab, the list of items you want to buy and so on. A lot of places you need a list. Okay? So an array in short for JavaScript. Well, the set state functions in React have a sort of small requirement, but very important we need to follow. So every time you set something as a state, if you want to trigger the re-render of React, it needs to have a value which is different from the previous value. Okay? That's very easy for strings, primitive values, strings, booleans and numbers, okay? But with arrays, you need to be careful. An array is a reference, an object as well is a reference. So it means that if you have an array and you want to trigger the re-render of React, you need to create a new array, okay? Even if you change a single element in some places in the array, you need to create a new array. But it's very simple again, because we saw the functional programming paradigm, and that functional programming paradigm, so the functions that handle the array, always return a new array. So just use those functions, like the map. Typically you have a map when you set a new array, okay? Why there is this requirement? Because React compares the value of the previous state and the current state, and if it's different, okay, it triggers this re-render. If it's equal, it doesn't go down and check all the details of your state. So if it's an array, it can see that the reference is the same. It assumes everything is the same, and it does not re-render. Okay, at least in theory. Then in practice, maybe something else happens. But I mean, that's the rule we need to follow. Okay, in debug mode, maybe it does something different. But so every time we change something in an array, we need to change the reference of the array as well. So use always a new array as the value of the thing you pass to the set state function. Okay. If you change an object, create a new object. Just copy all the properties of the old object. That's fine. It's easy. You know, you remember the 3 dots, the spread and stuff like that, or array copy, object copy, whatever. Do as you like, but create a new reference, a new object. Okay? And also, since often the new state depends on the previous one, because we take the array and often we delete something, we add something, and so on. Just remember to use a callback to ensure that no modifications are missed. Like with the counter example, +1, and so on. Okay? So, there are 3 typical cases where we need to use these set functions with arrays. Typical case, add something. How to add? Don't use push. Okay? Push, by the way, doesn't return an array. It just returns a number. So it's really something we should forget. Okay? But, I mean, in this case, the best thing is to use the concat method of the array. Every array has a concat method that returns the old array plus the new one. Okay? And it gives you a new reference to a new array. So it's very simple. If you like this concat at the end, okay? If you like adding stuff at the beginning, that's a good syntax. You create a new array because you open the square bracket, you put the new stuff you want to put, and then you spread the rest. Very easy, okay? Very convenient with the spread syntax, okay? I mean, these examples are given to you just to ensure that you have a way to do things, but also they are quite readable, hopefully. Okay? So that's inserting stuff. Of course, you can insert stuff at the end with this syntax as well. Just spread a comma and the rest. Okay? But, I mean, there's a concat as well. It's fine. Updating items. That's a bit more difficult. Okay? Because, well, you need to create a new array. So take the old one, and again, in the form of the function, it will be passed to our callback, old list. Old list, map, item, and j. Item, if nothing has changed, just return the item. But if something has changed, just return the new item. Okay? In this case, I wanted to update the item by doing +1. Okay? You can do whatever you want. You can substitute the number, you can do the square root, whatever the application requires. Okay? Just have this syntax that basically identifies in some ways the element you want to update. This is done on the index. I don't know why, because the application wanted to update the jth index element in the array. Okay? It can be done on any basis. Okay? It's just a condition to decide. It's the element I want to update or not. But the point is, I need to use the map. The map returns a new array. Okay? And then just use the logic you need to decide if you just return the old value and present in the old array, or you need to return something different. That's updating. In case you have objects, which is the example that we are going to see in a few minutes when we have our example with the question and answers, where answers are an object inside an array of answers. And in the lab, you have an object, a film, that is an object inside a list of films. You need to update an object. Don't forget, this applies, the changing the reference applies to all levels. So you need to change the reference to the array, but also the reference to the object if you are updating the object. And just one field of that object. Okay? So, this is a list of objects. You see ID and val, ID and val. Two objects in an array. Use state and so on. Okay? Again, with the function. All list map. Always use map. Okay? Unless you need to delete and add. But if you need to update, map is the easiest thing. If you find the element you're interested in, for instance, by the ID. In this case, I didn't use the index. In this case, I used the ID. I is the ID of the item to update because, I don't know, I received some information from the user, from the server, whatever. I don't care. Just return a new object. You see that I opened the curly bracket here. That's a new object with the new value. The older value for the ID and the new value for val. I just wanted to change val. I cannot just, do item.val equal to new val, like here. That's grade. That's wrong, because it doesn't change the reference to the object inside the array. Because what happens is that React says, okay, there's a new array. I will scan the array to check what has changed inside the array. There are all reference to objects. Well, nothing has changed. I don't care. Okay? I will not do nothing. Instead, there is a reference to an object that I didn't see before in this position. Okay, it has changed. I need to re-render the component and compute all the dependency, the props and stuff to re-render the interface according to what has changed. Okay? So the previous line, the one line with wrong, is indeed wrong because it doesn't create the new object. Okay? And of course, as before, if the object is not affected, it's the same, it's still fine to use it. Okay? You don't have to update everything. If it's the same, because it has stayed the same, it's fine to use it. But if something has changed, you need to change everything from the top to the bottom. So the array that contains the object and the object itself. That's the most common situation in web applications that are not so simple like the buttons that we saw before. Okay? So just keep this system in mind. Removing items. Well, again, two options. The filter. Filter is another function on arrays of the functional programming style. It returns a new array. That's good for us, right? So all list filter, just write a callback that evaluates to true to everything you want to keep and false to something to the stuff you don't want to keep. Or again, you can play with the structuring assignment, always the 3 dots, and just keep the new stuff. If you write in this way, note that list will be a new array because it's created as a new array by this syntax. Okay? Just find a way that creates a new array. Okay? Of course, if I'm removing stuff, I don't have to care about it's a new object or not. I'm just throwing it away, so it will not present anymore. I don't care. Okay? If it's added, of course, it will create it from scratch because it didn't exist before. And the only point you need to pay attention to when you have objects is when you are updating the content of objects. Okay? Because the object already exists and you need to create a new one. Okay, good. So, let's try to apply these concepts to our example. You know that we have the question and answer stuff, application, let's say. And I already pushed and I sent you a notification on Telegram on the fact that I published React QA state application. Okay, it's really basic without the state yet, and we are trying to introduce the state now. Okay, it's more or less the same as the previous one. Okay, the one we did on Monday, React QA. Just a few small differences, you know, just you know, importing from an external file some components and so on. So you can see some examples that can maybe be useful for you to organize your code. But I mean, the content of the code is basically the same. So we start from the point where we left on Monday. And let's just use it. So stop, change directory, React QA. I call it state because I'm still in week 7. I don't want to, you know, mess up with code. I know I could create other commits, but maybe it's easier if you directly have the code as the final version at the end of the lecture. Okay, so I think I already did yes, the npm CI. If I'm sure, I just rerun it. Okay, I did it in the office, npm run dev. Okay, by the way, you can also use some commands here or open the browser, so it's less let's say inconvenient, and go in the browser and click and stuff. Okay, okay, so that's the application. That's how we left it. Well, during Monday's lecture, I just you know, fixed the style and so on, you know, bigger fonts and stuff like that. But it's just aesthetics. It's just how it appears. I didn't make modifications. I mean, substantial modifications to the code. And so you see that I click on vote and nothing changes. Of course. I mean, there's no event handler and no state. Even if I have an event handler, if I don't have a state, where do I store the information that the score has changed or something has changed? There's no place, right? As everything is fixed, it's constant and so on. So let's try to see what we can do. So let's go to app. So the difference, as I was saying before, is just I put, you know, some code outside this file, because when the application grows, you might want to modularize it a little bit, so create new files for new components and so on. So there's a subfolder components where you have the question components. So just one component, question description. Actually, just, you know, well, it uses the fragment. Calls 9, calls 3. So I wanted to pass as props. You see question, and question has fields ID, text, questioner, and so when it renders, it gives me the information about the question. Okay, you can expect it. I invite you to try. Question description. You see the props. Props, actually, the props is a single object. As a prop, I can also pass objects. I need to be careful, of course, because if I pass object, it means that then I need to know which fields are inside the object that I pass. But I mean, you're designing everything, and so you know it. Okay, so I pass a single object question that has ID, questioner, and text. Okay, and also other stuff which I'm not using in the code. Okay, and so be aware of this syntax. It will be very useful for us while programming in React, because basically it allows us to extract a property from a JavaScript object, giving it a name. Okay, and then so I can avoid writing props, questions, ID, props, question, text, and so on. It just tells to search for the property named question inside the object props in JavaScript. This is JavaScript. And extract it as a variable that I can use in my code. Okay? It's very convenient, especially when you have to pass a lot of stuff, because you only pass one attribute when creating the component, and when you are receiving the component, you can extract what you need in this way. Okay? Yes?
But if props change, the content of props change, the change of question is automatic.
The change of question is automatic. That's a good question. Yeah, I think so. I need to check, but I think so. I think not really sure. So a question of your colleague is if we change something inside the no, that's here in app. So where we change something inside question, okay? So a value inside the properties of the object question. Does React know that something has changed? I'm not sure. I need to check, okay? In this example, very simple example, everything works, okay? That's because everything is already defined in the code, and we are not going to change anything without reloading and rerunning the application, okay? I can tell you that, typically these values, which are the state of the application, comes from a state. And so when they come from a state, we need to follow the rules that we just explained. So actually, we will make sure that the object has changed in this case, okay? So I guess probably we need to have the object reference changed. But I don't know. I need to make some experiments. Okay. I never thought about the problem in these terms. Okay, because typically when you pass a lot of information, they come from a state, and you already made sure that the reference to the object or the array has changed. Okay. Yes, but it doesn't matter if it's a state, it's a constant string, whatever. I mean, React checks the value. It does it with the triple equal. If it evaluates to false, it assumes something has changed. And so the point is more about has the reference changed? I don't know. So in this case, it doesn't change. But actually, we are not going to modify the question. For the answers, but we are going, it's an array, it's not an object in this case, we will have to change the reference to the array when we need to do modification. In this example, we are not going to do this modification because we don't have the delete button or the add button that requires a form and so on. Form are for later. And what I wanted to mention is if you pass a state as a props, it doesn't really matter that is a state. I mean, React take it as a value. That's why we are insisting of the fact that the value needs to change. Okay? So in this case, it's not even neither a props, not a state. It's a constant variable, constant global variable. It's a value. Okay? So React re-renders when it knows. I mean, no, it knows. It compares the props that a component receives with the previous props the component received before, and detects any change. It doesn't really care where the value the value comes from. Okay? If it comes from a state, but we know as programmer that it comes from a state, React doesn't know. Of course, it will also have to check all the states, and it will detect that there is a state that has changed. Okay? But the fact that the props comes from a state, I mean, doesn't really matter so much to React because it's just a value. Okay? So React has a list of components with the props and has a list of components with the states. And it just checks if the states have changed, anything has changed, and the state is connected to a component, that component has to be re-rendered. And there's components with props. When you re-render a component, you pass new props to some other components. These components that receive props different from before have to be re-rendered. The components are part of the virtual DOM. Okay? So if anything changes in the virtual DOM, React detects what changes in the virtual DOM and re-renders. Okay? So this is important to understand. I mean, it's more theoretical than practical because in practice, when you pass a state as a prop to a children component, that means that the current component and plus the children component typically re-renders because you have changed something. Otherwise, you wouldn't care. Okay? But the mechanism is this one. It just checks if the state is different from before and if the props are different from before. Okay? And anything that has changed, it gets re-rendered. And then in tools, it goes on and on until everything is stable. Okay? And so it knows what to re-render and then it applies it to the DOM. Okay? Oh, thank you for the question, which is interesting and also made me reflect, and I will give you the answer next time. But I actually, elaborating a little bit on this, I think, yeah, we should change probably the reference to the object to make sure that the component re-renders. But in this simple case, actually, it's context, so we didn't even think about it. Okay? Okay, good. So now we need to decide where to store the information of what we want to change, and what we want to change is the score, right? Actually, we have some place where the information is stored, and actually it's this answers list. Okay, we couldn't even print it. It's not set so bad. I mean, in other courses don't like to do this stuff, okay? Because it's actually, a side effect, it breaks React, and so on. But for debugging, I mean, I think it's more useful, to see what's happening than, just thinking. And so you see, this is the list of objects that we have in memory, and will be used later for rendering the table, right? So here we have the score. In each object we have the score, right? And so actually, this array, which 4 elements, needs to be maintained into a state in some place, because at a certain point we would like to change the score, right? So we need to change the score, and we need to keep the information about the score that has changed. So where do we put the this state? Well, if we are unsure, let's see where we need the information, and then we lift the state until we reach a place which is we lift the state until we reach a place where the information is available to all the children that need that information. Okay? So, well, of course, the information is in the table, right? So it's here in the score. Okay? So let's see how the table is made. That's the table, header, and the body. It's a list. It has answer rows. Okay? Oops, answer rows. Is this the correct? directory. Yes, oops. I need to delete this stuff, sorry. I forgot to delete. Answer row, it's here, and answer row is just a component that I defined to render the row. Okay, and so here it is the button. On the button, I will have to put on click something, right? Because that's a button I want to click. On click, we can start typing a little bit. On click, well, we actually don't know what to do at the moment, so we just put an empty callback. Okay, we remember to fill it later. Okay, but I mean, can the state be in each row? Yes and no. I mean, it means that the list of answers should be divided into many states, one for each row. It might be convenient for the score, but then when I delete or add an answer, where I'm going to put this information? I would like to keep the list of rows, the list of answers all together, right? Because otherwise I can implement the operation of changing the score, but I cannot implement the information about the operations about adding or deleting, okay? Because I need a place where I have the full list, okay? And the full list cannot be in a single row. I cannot duplicate the state. If you duplicate the state, by the way, as somebody sometimes does at the exam, you incur in so many problems that it's really, really recommended not to duplicate states, okay? Because then, if you have a duplicate state, what happens? You have a state, you update a state, and you should update the duplicate as well. There is the use effect that can somehow help you in doing this, but it's really not recommended because it's a source of a lot of errors, okay? You forget to update in sometimes, or even if you update, the updates are not synchronous and a lot of problems. So when you have some information, you need to have only one place where that information is available. And as we said before, if we are not sure, just lift it up until you reach up, okay? That's the solution that always works. If possible, keep it lower in the element tree because it makes things more ordered, okay? More easier to understand, okay? So the answer row is not a good place where to put the information. Well, actually, the table could be a good option, right? I think we put it into table, right? I don't know because components answer components. No, actually, we didn't put it into the table. Well, the table is fine, I think. Why we didn't put it into the table? I have no idea. I cannot see a reason why. Well, I think we can do it into the table. I mean, the table is fine, as long as we don't need to have this information above in the element tree, okay? I think we did it for later, for next lectures. So let me put it above, okay? So, I mean, it's not wrong to put it above the place where you could put it, like here in table. Sometimes it's a matter of style also, okay? So in very simple applications, sometimes it's just a matter of style. I think, yeah, we did it in main. Main, yeah, if you are unsure, just go to the debugger and you see the structure of the element tree, okay? So there's, well, the bootstrap container, the header, the main. What is the main? Well, the main, basically, it's everything except the header. The row, well, that's a question. That's the the title of the answers, and then the answers of the table. Okay? Okay. Oh yeah, I think we put it into main because at a certain point we also need to put the question and so on. But well, let's stick with main. Okay. So how do you define a state? Use state. State. Okay. Well, don't forget you need to import it. And it's already imported. That's fine. Okay. So, what's the state? Const. Use the destructuring assignment. So this is, we say, the list of answers. Call it as you like, answer list, answers, whatever. Answers. Answers, yes. Just make sure that when you choose a name, then you write set and that name with the uppercase on the first letter. Answers. Okay? Use state. What's here? What's the initialization? Well, here we have, it's easy to decide how to initialize the stuff, right? It's just, answers here. Actually, we use the same name. Not good, right? Initial answers, okay? I just renamed this once. So it also reminds you the fact that these are the values just for the beginning. So when the application starts the execution, okay? Good. So initial answers. And then here we don't use answers. No, we use answers actually, but answers now has become the state. It's not the initial answers that the constant variable, that global variable in this example. Save, run, and make sure everything is fine. When you reach a point that should run, just check it. Yeah, so let me, answers is not defined, 15. What is the answer? 15, console log, okay, well, it doesn't matter, the console log, it's fine, okay. Okay, so nothing has changed. Now we have a state, but the state doesn't change because if you don't call the set state, it will not change. So we will try to write something, some code now that will change the state. Okay, good. So the state changes according to some events that happens in the application. Can be the user interacting with the application, can be receiving information from the server, a timer that we set, okay? Something that triggers the execution of some functions, the callbacks that we say, okay? So if we don't attach an event handler to something at the moment, nothing happens. Okay? So let's attach something here. We say that there's a button. We would like to click the button. We are in answer components now. On the button. On click. Well, actually, we don't know what to write here, right? What do we write? We are in the same condition as the slides with the buttons. Remember the buttons? Here. We are in a children, but the state is in main. It's it's in the parent, one of the parent nodes. So we need to call this set state from the children. And so we need to pass some function as props to the children. Okay? So just give a name. So what's the name I used? I don't remember. And just copy from here because otherwise it takes so much time to rewrite everything. When I go back to the office, I need to commit the final solution. What's the name I used? That was vote. let's say vote. Okay? Vote, it's fine. Okay? We do something simple, and then I will show you, I will commit a solution which is a bit more complex. Plus button, or up button, down button, delete button, and so on. But I'm not sure how long it will take. So let's try to keep things simple here in the room. Vote. So vote in this way is a prop of answer. Okay? Answer row is created here, and it gets passed here. Okay? Yeah, I don't like it. I should modify the answer object, right? In this way. E-vote. I don't like it. It's possible. Everything is possible. You create a new object, you add a property. You know that you can add properties dynamically in JavaScript and so on. So that was my first thought. I don't like it. I would like to pass it explicitly as a prop. So props vote. So I can write vote here, and it's props vote again. Okay? So I take a prop that is passed to the answer table, and I pass it myself with the same name vote to the answer row. Okay? And then here it's used. Oh, it needs to be called. It's a function. Okay? Sorry. Good. So now I need to pass props vote to answer table. So I go back to up, answer table. It has to have a vote equal to something. And now, what are we going to write here? We need to write something that is a function that modifies the state, right? Okay. I'm trying to replicate the process, that I'm using to think what to do. Okay, I could give you the solution, but I would like that the process of thinking remains recorded and to you that are listening. So const vote, okay, arrow function is fine. So we should modify the answers, so set answers. Yeah. And, well, we said the new state depends on the old one. So it's a function, right? Answer list, or old answer list. I brought it answer list. Answer list. Answer list. Yeah. Let me write the return because I'm not sure what I'm going to write, okay? So I don't forget the return. So what I'm going to return? An array, right? The same array. Actually, I did not add or delete anything. So if I'm unsure, just go and check. I'm updating, not this case, but this other case. We have objects, right? So map, okay, map, and let's create a new object for the object we are going to modify. Return answer list map. So map means new array, okay? And the element, what are we going to do with this element? Well, if the element is the one we care about, and we are missing this part now, okay? We will modify it, okay? We will create a new object. We create an object assign. Well, object assign, it doesn't matter. No. Object assign. We create a new object. With the old one, well, first empty object, old one, and some new new props, yes, that will overwrite the old one. Score, score That's the name of the prop. E score plus 1. Okay? Otherwise, just E. Right? We don't change the other objects. Okay, are the parentheses balanced? Yes. Okay, so we are missing something here, right? What are we missing here? Well, we need to check, we need to know which element we are going to modify, like in the example, right? The example is item ID equal to I, that is some index that comes from some place. What are we going to modify? Well, we know. Actually, the application now stopped the work because I didn't write anything here. But, you know, there are the buttons, right? And we need to know which button we pressed. So the callback that starts from the button needs to tell us here something about which button has been pressed. And so we go back and back and back up to in the tree until we reach the function that makes the modification. So do we have a DID here in the answer? I hope so. EID. Okay? Actually, I don't remember. Let me check. Question component. No, what is the QA model? Yes, we have the ID. That is the first parameter. Okay, ID 1, 2, 3, 4. It's unique. It's fine, and so we can use it. EID. Okay, this is just a normal parameter. It's a number, a JavaScript number, passed as a parameter to a function. Okay, it will be called, and this parameter will be passed to this function. This function is exactly this function, the one vote here, okay? Because it's the one that we passed through the props. Actually here, vote. Okay? ID, ID. So, actually, EID equal to ID. So EID is the one extracted from the list, and ID is the one that comes from the parameter. If it's actually that ID, I will do the modification. So I create a new object. I could do it in different ways, with the spread and so on, whatever you like. Okay? But the spread here is not so convenient. We need to overwrite one property. So, I mean, it's easier to use this assign. Okay? I think so. Maybe some of you have a better idea. So let me save it. Let me check if there are any errors. Hopefully not. Let me check. Okay, let's try. It works, right? You see the score changes. Let's inspect what's happening. So where do we put the state? Main. Okay, the state is a complex state. You see now it's not a string, it's not a boolean, and so on. And you can inspect the content. Okay, actually we modify the first one, right? So stay a score 8, 9, 10, and so on. Okay, and what about the others? Yeah, they work. Okay. Actually, there are 4 handlers. Don't forget it. Because when you render the components, you create an array and you create 4 answer row components. Okay? Indeed, if you go and check in the inspector here, well, actually the tree of the element tree, you see there are 4 answer rows. Okay? Each one will have an handler that has a function that is called with a different parameter. 0, 1, 2, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we started with 1. Okay? So you see, we didn't write a single line of code to update the user interface. Okay, everything is handled by React. That's the powerfulness of React. Okay, we just design the state and the properties in a way that we change the state and everything is propagated correctly to the components, and React takes care of understanding what has changed and re-render what needs to be re-rendered. Okay, and in this case we only change the score, and so of course only the score will change. Okay, good. So I would say it's almost over, right? I mean, for this very simple example, it's almost over. Let's do something more interesting. I mean, everything is interesting, of course, but something different, I mean. Let's try to delete something. We cannot really add anything because we need a form where we need to type and so on, and this is a topic for a separate lecture, because forms are important and requires a lot of other stuff, including other states and so on. And so let's try to delete something. So how can I delete something? Well, let's make a button, delete. Well, actually, you know, at this point, why can't I try to maybe create a component with the actions? Would be nice, right? Because otherwise I start to adding another button. I can do it here, but it's fine. But I can add another column and so on. At this point, I need to reorganize my mind, thinking of how to arrange things in the interface. But this is I mean, just a question about styling, okay? Don't spend too much time about these things. I mean, let's start, at least in the lab, let's start making functionalities work. So the add, the update, so the vote in this case, and the delete and so on. And then we will think where to put the buttons and the elements in the interface. But at this point, either I hope everything is fine. Well, I can do that. Let me do it. Otherwise, it seems I'm too concerned about the interface. Okay, let's put another button. Just save. Well, let's write something. Otherwise, it doesn't appear. Vote was delete, right? Okay. Okay, delete. Ugly, no space between one and the other and so on. I know you know, and you have Google, you have ChatGPT and so on. Just ask how to space them. Okay, just add a class, space a little bit. But I mean, we don't care. We care first about also for the exam. Okay, if the space between the two buttons is missing, you are not going to lose points if all the rest is working fine. Okay, but if the button is not working, of course, that's a point or something less. Okay, so let's make the functions, the functionalities work. Okay, I have a new button, delete. Of course, I need to attach an handler. Again, on click. Okay. Again, it's a modification to the state. It needs to disappear from the state. And I need another function. Okay? So, let's use the same system. Props delete. EID. Again, I need to tell which element has to be deleted. EID. Okay? Fine. I need to pass the prop. So you remember here, delete, props delete. Okay, that's the stuff I deleted before because I forgot to delete. I started from the solution. Delete equal to delete. And delete this second name, you see it doesn't exist yet. It's because it's another function we are going to define here. Const. Delete. Again, it takes the ID and then, well, delete. What's the problem with delete? Maybe, no, it's delete. Delete answer. Maybe it's a reserved keyword. Yes. Sometimes you carrying this really, difficult stuff to debug. It's just that delete is a reserved keyword, I guess. Anyway, so delete answer. Okay, how to delete? I give you the slides. I gave you the slides, right? Removing stuff. Well, this is what is needed by us because we have an index for the element we would like to delete. Okay, it just doesn't come from the index in the array, but it's an element. It's a property of the item. Okay, so let's just adapt this syntax. So set answers the set of the state, and we pass a function because it depends on the previous state. Answer list, as we did before. Let's see if we can write everything compactly. Answer list filter e, and so we need the condition for which if the condition is true, it's kept. So if the condition is false, if the condition is true, I don't remember. Let's read the explanation. Function accept the that meet the condition. Okay, if the function is true, it's kept. Okay, so the function is true, it's kept. It means EID is different from the ID that is the parameter that is passed. Okay, so this evaluates to true for everything except the ID. Okay, yes, it's fine. Okay. Save. Let me see. Yes. Let's see if it works. No, it doesn't work. What's happening here? Cannot update a component wherein. For the stack trace and so on. Well, at least we have something interesting to do, right? Path state call inside answer log. Follow the stack trace. It should work. What's wrong here? Set answer with delete answer. Delete. Props delete. Button on click. Non è un arrow function? Which one? Oh, yeah, you're right. Good. Great, I would say. Okay? Yes. You see what happened? Very difficult stuff to debug. What happened? Is that we cannot call the set of the state while React is rendering. That's the error message, right? That's because written in this way, thanks to your colleague who spotted it, actually the function is called immediately when you're rendering the component. And indeed, it should be a function that is passed, okay, as a callback function to be executed on the on click, okay, save. So you see how mysterious was the error, but actually how easy was the fix, okay? Okay, good, so let's try. Okay, now it's fine. Let's try the delete button. Let's press and see if this row disappears. Yes, good. Let's try with the middle one. Yes, good. How can we make them appear again? Well, no other choice. We reload the application. At the moment, we have no other choice. Otherwise, we should have another state, a button, go back, whatever. We need to complicate a lot the application. We don't want to do that, okay? So, basic functionalities, and we were able to implement these functionalities just, updating the state, okay? So, we just do set answers. The rest happens automatically, thanks to React, okay? React takes care of updating the user interface in a way which is consistent with the state and the props defined in our application. Okay? And so your main focus should be on how should update the state, and make sure you update the state in the correct way, as we did, as we said about arrays of objects and stuff and so on. And the rest happens automatically. Otherwise, you have something wrong in the design. Just ask us in the labs or in the breaks and so on. Okay? So I will commit this solution at this point. I think we saw, yes, everything that was important for today. And then, as usual, I will update it a little bit more when I'm back in the office, because next time we need to have something which is a bit more appealing for doing other experiments and so on. So in short, what is missing here, actually, I mean, nothing from the point of view of the functionalities. It's just, make sure you have, let's say, an up vote, down vote, so two buttons to vote. Use the icons, so you see an example with the icons as well, instead of text inside the button. Or I think, what else? Yeah, just use a single event handler for both upvoting and downvoting, depending on what you pass, add the parameter and stuff like that. I mean, just small modification, but the basic structure is here, okay? And that's everything you need to have for the lab, okay? So in the lab, you will have your film library, and you will make the filter work, okay? So you don't have the buttons here, one for each row, but you have a separate set of buttons. So you will have to put the state in a parent component that is accessible both from the filters and from the list of films, okay? At the moment, you don't have a state. You have something up that you pass down with props, but you don't have a state. You transform that stuff that you pass down into a state, so you can modify it through these callbacks that starts from the pressing the buttons, if you add the delete button, or by pressing the buttons of the filter. So the filter will decide which element in the list you want to keep and which element you want to discard, okay? But everything is written in the text of the lab for next week, okay? We will meet again on Monday in any case, if you have doubts and so on. I will publish soon the text for next lab, so you can start working on the next lab as well, okay? And the solution for this one as well, okay? So I think for today, that's all. I hope it's clear, the state of React and how to use it, even in complex situations like this. At the exam, it will not be so much. I mean, there will be more states, of course. I mean, we would like to have an application which does a bit more than just one list. Okay, there may be 2-3 lists or something like this, but the basic structure is this one. Okay, so if you understood how to handle the state, it's already a good point, towards having a fully functional React application. Okay. So I don't see any questions, so if there are no questions, I think we can stop here, right? And see you on Monday, okay?